Yeah, Chrysanthemum was like evil at one point. You could say.
He was.
I mean, isn't he still evil?
I mean, he's a gun for hire. I
Isn't
think
he
more
called Black
so than he is.
Chrysanthemum?
I think he's a Wookiee mad claw, which means that he has wounded someone with his claws, which is against the Wookiee way.
Oh, the
If I'm not
Wookiee
mistaken.
way. Damn, if
I
I
feel
ever
like
started another
he's-
podcast, I would call it the Wookiee way.
The Wookiee way?
The Wookiee way.
The Wookiee way. Wookiee theory.
If we on my other channel, if we do a Star Wars show, it's going to be called Wookiees and Woolbooks. Thank you, Alex Damon, for that name.
Oh, right. So that's really great. Now it's like that's a good like one-shot title.
Wait, what's
like-
Tarkin's first name again?
Will Huff.
There you go, Wookiees and Will Huff.
Oh my gosh. The fucking buddy cop show you never knew you needed. Tarkin and a Wookiee just solving crimes on the Death Star. Okay.
Hey, we're here.
That's the last time we're going to laugh this hour. All right.
Yeah, Star Wars. Listen, Star Wars is ruined. All right, Kathleen Kennedy and those woke Disney, those woke folks over at Disney, they're just ruining Star Wars. Okay.
Welcome back to Scoundrels, another Star Wars podcast. I am Frank Janish, and this week I have with me Sean Sullivan and Brandon Hanna. Sadly, no Kevin Smets because he had to work late yesterday and has to work late today, so he's a working boy. But we're here to talk about the third episode of The Acolyte, Destiny. Everyone loved it. Everyone's just through the roof with this. Everyone is on cloud nine. They're like shouting from the rooftops. They did it. They did it in all unanimous. Is that correct, guys? Is that
Yeah.
right?
This is a generally well-loved Star Wars series. There's no weird takes. There's no weird sexism or homophobia. Shouting for people to lose their jobs or.
I've seen so many great comments online, stuff like, wow, that is such a thoughtful review. There's no way you were paid off by Disney. Those are your honest thoughts. I could just tell from the bottom of your heart. You really believe that, good, wholesome,
Who would have thought?
interactions.
Who would have thought Star Wars fandom would heal the world? Incredible. Well, I wish that were the case, guys. I wish that hopefully that's an alternate universe somewhere out there where civil discourse reigns supreme, but not in this universe, unfortunately. But we're not here to really, delve into that side of things. We're here just to talk about what happened in the episode. What do we like? What do we dislike? All, of course, in a civil, respectful manner, because after all, it is just a TV show. It is just a made-up story in a galaxy far, far away. It's not that big of a deal, guys. Sure, you can have strong opinions and takes, but we're here to keep it civil and have fun with the thing that we all love is Star Wars. So, Sean, Brandon, you guys weren't here last week, and last week we talked about. Oh yeah, that's right. You were in the back.
I've been here the whole time.
How could I forget? You had that wonderful take on episode 1 and 2 of The Acolyte. Could you refresh the audience out there?
Yeah, I wish
in case.
I wish you would stop losing my footage on these recordings. I think episode 1 and 2 are fine. They were a little like. I don't know. This show is interesting to me because I really like it. I really like the setup for it. I'm very interested in the High Republic. It's got a very different aesthetic, which I don't think a lot of people were ready for. But I think overall the show just kind of feels just paced strange. The pacing is strange, and I don't know how to describe that. I really like everything that was included in the first 2 episodes. I really like a lot of the concepts. I just, the pacing's a little weird. I don't have any issues with the dialogue or the characters. They're all great. The pacing just is killing me. I don't know what it is. Love the show. Solid 8 out of 10.
Okay. That's where I was about at last week as well. Brandon, what is your take on the first 2 episodes, the premiere?
Yeah, I think I would agree with Sean about the pacing. It's just something about it is like a little off. So for me, I felt especially the first episode got off to a bit of a slow start. But that being said, I understand, why editing is not easy. You know, that's why people win awards for this sort of thing. But and not that I'm saying the editing is bad, but what I'm saying is they did a lot of, I think, world building and character introduction that can be hard to balance. But for me, it was worth it because I immediately fell in love with these characters, particularly Soul. I'm part of the Soul Patrol, I think you called it, Frank.
Hell yeah.
Soul Patrol.
That's actually from Sean. Sean let me in
I have
on the Soul
coined
Patrol
that
thing.
term,
Okay.
the Soul Patrol. Yeah.
I'm a part of the Soul Patrol. Thank you, Sean. It is a pleasure to be a part of the Soul Patrol. He seems like a really stand-up guy, even with his chunky lightsaber. And, so I really fell in love with these characters. And after the first 2 episodes, I'm like, okay, like, wasn't the greatest thing I ever saw, but now I am 100% on board, and I cannot wait for next week. And then I feel like I'm going to be saying that every week because, not to spoil anything, but after episode 3, I immediately went, wow, I need episode 4 right now. So, I'm on board. I'm on board. I think they're doing a great job. And I just want to say, it really feels like this show was created by someone who has a particular love for the Star Wars prequels. The music cues ripped straight out of like a Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. The cuts, the transitions are all very George Lucas. And it just feels like really fun to be back in that era that I grew up with in Star Wars.
Definitely. I think the prequel trilogy, for all of us, had a huge impact on our love for Star Wars overall. But let's jump into overall thoughts for episode 3 before we really dive into the different sections of this episode and the characters in this episode. I'll just start off by saying I was really unsure of what to think of the episode at large, just because I felt like there was a lot of things going on, and I felt like I got a lot more questions out of this. I felt like I had a lot more questions out of this episode. I got a couple answers, I felt like, but I just left the episode wanting more from the episode, I guess, in a sense. But I feel like it's just a piece of a larger puzzle, because obviously I don't think you could wrap up. Obviously, the point of view that happens in this episode is just one side of things, so that left me intrigued. I thought the episode overall, I think, worked really well. Pretty much focusing on this one, coven of witches and the characters of Mae and Osha, as opposed to the first 2 episodes where you're kind of jumping around a little bit, going planet hopping and whatnot, and you're following Mae, you're following Osha, and all of that. I think this episode was definitely interesting in what it presented for Star Wars lore at large, and I can't wait to talk about that stuff. I think I found that the most fascinating about this, trying to figure out what does it mean for me, how I interpret things, and I'm curious about your guys' thoughts. Sean, your overall thoughts on episode 3.
Listen, I think that Star Wars is ruined.
Okay.
No,
well said, well put.
They've shit down Anakin Skywalker's throat. He was the chosen one. Yeah, it's fine. I mean,
look what they did to my boy.
like I don't know what the fuck you want. Fucking Darth Plagueis. I'm sure I'm skipping ahead here. Excuse me. It's very heavily implied in multiple sources that Darth Plagueis could create life. It is never implied that he is the only one that can create life. It is never implied that Anakin Skywalker is the only one to have been birthed of the Force. If anything, the implication is that the Force has the ability to create life. It surrounds us. It binds us. It penetrates us.
Sexy.
I don't know what you want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was good. It was cool. I really like the culture of the not Night Sisters.
Yeah.
I really dug that we got to see a Iridonian female Zabrak when we've only ever seen, for the most part, male Iridonian Zabraks and Dathomiri Night Sisters. Right. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of interesting symbolism going on. There's a lot of interesting little cues. The title sequence with the O, and then the eclipses in the background, the concentric circle branding, the pit itself. There's like all these like very witchcrafty occultist symbology of a circle and a coven that are coming together that I'm kind of curious where we're going to see that. There's some other foreshadowing here that I just thought the episode was really good. I would have liked if this was played differently, if it wasn't done in one big flashback, but we had the flashbacks revealed over time.
Okay.
But I think we were able to learn a lot more anthropologically, culturally about the society they came from. So I think ultimately this served the purpose, right? We got to learn a ton about the characters and where they come from. But I think I would be more used to it being played out over the course of multiple episodes, maybe in flashback.
Yeah, I got you there. Yeah. Brandon, what were your thoughts walking away from the episode?
Yeah, I'm ready to get into the nitty gritty too, but yeah, overall I enjoyed it, and I kind of like knew what to expect just from like whispers of people who have seen it already. So I was like, I came in prepared to like go, all right, what's the controversy? What's this all gonna? How's it gonna be actually portrayed in the episode? So I went in with that already, like kind of in the back of my head, but. Yeah, no, I really like it. I like the new characters, our old characters, because it's a flashback. But the actual witches, the actual mothers, I don't remember their names, but they were cool.
And Coral, yeah.
Yeah, Anastasia was awesome. Like she's like, all right, you want to be a Jedi? Go be a Jedi. Like I don't want you to be a Jedi, but also I want you to do what you want.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that if she was really like, yeah, go on, sweet child.
All right, Frank, you skeptic over here. You know,
I'm just saying we're going to talk about it. I'm just saying
because she's a witch doesn't mean she's bad, Frank.
I did not say that. I didn't say that, Brandon.
You know, I really liked the interpretation of the Force, how different cultures have different interpretations of the Force. I've heard people say this contradicts the Jedi beliefs, and I don't think that's true at all. I'm ready to defend that. I'm ready to get heated and debate it. Let's go. Yeah. But I liked it. It just made me excited to see more. And there's a lot of stuff it answered and a lot of questions it gave us because what really went. We're gonna get another flashback. What the hell really went down there?
Yeah.
Well, there's some shots.
Torben, whatever your name is.
There's some shots in the trailer that show like other things that happened in that past timeline.
Yes.
So because Carrie Ann Moss's character is in some shots and like Torben's in some shots that like, hey, we haven't seen those yet. Meaning. We're missing something here, right?
I get the feeling Carrie Ann Moss is up to mischievous deeds.
It remains to be seen, but you could be right. You could be wrong.
Seems like
let's get into some of the meat of this episode. But I guess Brandon, where do you? Cause it seems like you're chomping at the bit. So where do you want to start? Where do you want to start?
Oh my gosh! Well, I guess we'll talk about the interpretation of the Force, the threads of the Force, or whatever. You know.
Yeah.
I really like that. It goes along with what Obi-Wan is and even Luke's teachings to Rey. It's just like, hey, like the Force surrounds us, it binds us, it penetrates us, it flows through us, it holds the galaxy together, and it's not like a power that you have. It's it's your connection to all living things, and so not too dissimilar from saying like, hey, everything is threaded together, and your destiny is not determined. And I think this is where like the ideology kind of changes a little bit. Your destiny isn't determined by the Force. Like if you want to go and pluck the thread, go and pluck the thread, but just know that like has a butterfly effect and it changes everything. And you have to live with the consequences of plucking the thread. Which again is like a slight difference in ideology, but it doesn't change the interpretation of how the Force works. So I liked that. Because I don't think these witches are, they're not inherently evil. I think they just have a different way of viewing the Force, as opposed to the Sith, who are evil.
Well, so there's something I think very interesting about like the cause and effect thing, right? Because there's like the Jedi just kind of teach like, yeah, you can wield the Force. It surrounds us, it binds us, it penetrates us. But like this idea that if you move a rock, you're changing the environment and you're pulling on that thread, it's going to affect the overall tapestry, that, that makeup of the fabric. I really liked the thread interpretation. A lot of fantasy settings use an interpretation of a magic system called the weave, and it's exactly that. You're pulling when you're doing magic. You're pulling on the weave, and you're pulling on the threads and the strands of the weave. And yeah, it's right. I don't see, Brandon, I totally agree. I don't see any conflict in the interpretation between what the Jedi and this circle, this coven teach. I mean, in fact, like when Mother Anastasia is talking about how the Force, how the threads work,
yeah,
it's totally the same as the Obi-Wan speech. Mm-hmm. It's almost verbatim, you know.
Yeah, and I like what you mentioned about, like, you know, even if you lift a rock, there's consequences of that. It changes everything. Mm-hmm. It's almost like quantum mechanics. Just by observing a system, you change it.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, I really like that, because it seems like, okay, the Jedi and this coven have similar interpretations of the Force. It works the same way, but the coven almost takes it a step further, where it's like, we know even if you do something as simple as lifting a rock in the air, you're changing it, but the Jedi will just lift a bunch of rocks willy-nilly and not care how it affects the rest of the universe.
Well, it's also kind of interesting, because I think that I don't want to step on the toes of anyone who currently follows or accepts or acknowledges any sort of pagan practice or belief, but when we, in a modern sense, when we talk about witches, we think witches and wizards and, you know, warlocks. We don't think Wicca and paganism and we don't think of religion, right? Mm-hmm. The Jedi very much are a religion. They are a religious order of monks, especially here in the High Republic. They are akin to you know, the Order of Malta or the Templars after, you know, beyond the Crusades, right? They are
Knights Templar, yeah.
They are a paramilitary religious order without a war to fight. I know I have my episode 2 speech about how the Jedi are not should not be a paramilitary organization. Ultimately, they are, right? Ultimately, they are keepers of the peace. They are cops, right? When that is not a religion. There are religious there are religious aspects to what they're doing, but for them it's a combination of physical and metaphysical and training and meditation and all this stuff. What we see from the circle is very much the practicing of magic, right? It's you know, if you compare, like, if we look on a scale, you've got the Jedi over here, you know, sort of the Force is a tool to be used, and then we see this coven going more towards the magic side, and then we got the Night Sisters way the fuck over there, who are just like, here's green laser beams, right? I don't know why my camera's freaking out. I apologize, Frank. You're gonna have a hard time editing me going in and out of focus there, but I apologize. But right, like it's a completely different span of what we're used to seeing with the Force, and I understand why they would have been persecuted for that. Because we hear them say they've been persecuted. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, especially with the High Republic, very much you see a lot of parallels between, like, medieval Teutonic orders and stuff like that. Yeah, it would make sense that you if you're following those tropes, yeah, you persecute the witches, right? Not that that's okay, but I'm saying I understand why, like, that sort of setup is there.
Yeah. Let me just say, what I found interesting about the scene where Mother Anastasia is doing, like, the demonstration, the teaching of the thread and all that. She says some call it a force and claim to use it, and, like, that's a really interesting way to frame, I guess, or juxtapose to the Jedi, who claim to use it as a power. And I feel like you guys were touching on this too, that, yeah, they take it, I think they're more mindful of their use of the Force or the thread, and I think they're a little more, I guess, I don't know if in tune is the right word, but maybe they have more reverence for it, I think, as opposed to the Jedi who use it to police the galaxy for peace and all that, which is like a noble thing to do, right? But at the same time, they are kind of taking it all for themselves, because eventually there's another conversation where Mother Anastasia says it's about who's allowed to use this power. And you see that when the Jedi come and go, we have a right to test for potential Padawans based under Republic law, basically, is what these. And obviously, the planet they're on, Brendok, is not under Republic law, which Mother Anastasia reminds them of. We're not part of the Republic. You have no, basically, jurisdiction here to come and test the children. But because of, I guess, the inferred past conflict or confrontations,
I think
it gets murky with their relationship in terms of how two different parties view and wield the Force.
Well, so I think they are Republic expatriates, right? Like, so they are like Republic citizens, you know.
At one point, yeah, probably.
Yeah, whether or not they left the Republic, they're still all registered, you know,
sure,
citizens of the Republic, whatever planet they were on. Which, okay, I know generally we're all positive on the episode. Here's my complaint, where I'm going to get into in a second. They are you know, they have come from somewhere that was Republic controlled space, because she says we'll be safe here,
right?
You know, we don't have to worry about persecution. Okay, here's my question: the persecution seems like it was a recent thing within the last 30 years, right? It doesn't seem like it was like centuries ago our people were persecuted. It seems like, no, we left somewhere and came here.
At least within 10 years, because the kids are around 8-10 years old, or 8 years, I think they're supposed to be. So
yeah. So why do they have how do they have such intricate tradition around natural sites of power on this planet?
Interesting.
Like that is just I don't have any complaint about the writing of the show except that one. It doesn't make sense for them to have religious reverence and tradition built up around natural sites of power that seem old and, you know, rooted in long centuries of tradition. But they've been here like maybe, I don't know, I'll give them 30 years tops, right?
Sure.
Which I will give myself, I will play devil's advocate to myself. It's possible that they've been making pilgrimages here.
Yeah.
And then decided this was where they would stay, right?
Like, this is a site we might have to go to in case.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so that's my devil's advocate, but none of that was, you know, none of that's mentioned, so I'm gonna...
And I don't think that's really pertinent at this point in time.
No.
It was just, I think, like a visual. Yeah, you would go, huh.
Yeah.
Interesting how these planets and moons line up, and they're doing this whole ascension ritual. Okay.
But again, it's like it's that's what I engage with in Star Wars, right? Like, is the weird, you know, culture stuff and the, I don't know. It's none of that is. It just felt off to me. Overall, I liked their culture, but I was like, wait a minute, if they're not from here, why is that like this? That's my diatribe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to go back to this Destiny talk of I think Anastasia says destiny is not decided for you by an anonymous force. You get to make a choice. Talking to Osha, if you want to pull the thread, then pull it. Fear should not make this decision. You should. I mean, there are so many similarities between how the Jedi view and practice the Force and how the Coven view and practice the Force. And I guess the main part where they split and diverge is who is allowed to wield the Force. And it seems like, you know, I think we were talking about it earlier, Sean. I think you, Sean, pointed out that the Jedi are kind of like, you know, who's over here using the Force? We got to make sure this doesn't get out of hand. Obviously, you have the Sith Wars and all of that. They don't want that type of thing happening and wreaking havoc over the galaxy. And so now it becomes this kind of over policing of who can wield the Force, and I guess, and it seems like the Coven of just like, who are you to tell us to, police who can use the Force when it's a natural thing that's in this universe, right? Like, who are you to say? Why can't we train these children? Oh, because you might be doing dark, unnatural things, things that we don't subscribe to, so therefore no one else can subscribe to. And that's the part in which this episode where I looked at the Jedi and I go, man, that's a really sticky situation to really be putting your fingers into and determining, because there's without a doubt going to be tons of people within the Star Wars galaxy or universe that can wield the Force but are never identified by the Jedi. And what they're just going to keep going around and being like, okay, you've got this midi-chlorian level, you're good. You're up here, okay, you got to come with us. And it just seems so, I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about that in terms of like, and then there's a law behind it if you're within the Republic, and it's just,
well, it's the Catholic Church during the Middle Ages, right? It's less that there's a law. It's less that there's a law that the Jedi have claim. I think it's just more that, like, for the safety of the general populace, this crazy magic power that lets you siphon life and shoot lightning and right. all kinds of crazy potential.
Yeah.
It needs to be regulated. There needs to be some sort of regulation. It's Second Amendment shit, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
a little bit.
It's a little bit I think unintentionally. Like, not that I think Leslie Headland is trying to make a
Second Amendment argument,
a 2A argument, yeah. But like, there's a little bit of that, like, as far as, this is something dangerous. If it's in the wrong hands, there is so much that can go wrong.
But you know what? I say all that, but I think there's something larger at play that we still do not fully have the picture of regarding the children and, let's get into it, Brandon, the creation of these kids. Brandon, what is your take on that conversation where Coral's like, I carry them, and then Anastasia's like, yeah, well, I created them. What was your reaction to that, bit of revelation?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say it really seems like the Republic and the Jedi as a whole really, they fear the return of the Sith so much that that's why they have these laws that only Jedi can wield the Force and only Jedi can have this power. And yeah, it's they claim to do it for the greater good, but is it? I don't know.
What are the unintended consequences of that?
Yeah,
practice?
And I'll touch on that a little more later, but kind of knew this was coming based on the whispers that I heard, but
right.
I have no problem with it. I think it's a really interesting story thread, no pun intended. And actually, no, the pun was intended. Sorry.
There you go.
And I don't think it breaks canon at all. There's no, like, to me, Anakin being the chosen one has nothing to do with him having an immaculate birth, immaculate conception, whatever, like virgin birth, like it created by the Force, whatever you want to, like, however you want to describe it. That's not why he's the chosen one. It was like a series of things where Qui-Gon met him and he's like, oh, there's something about this kid. Okay, he's like, what, 8-9 years old, and he can pod race, and he's the only human being that can do it, and he's that young.
I don't even, hold on. Let's just say that's probably not true. I don't believe that for a second.
You think Anakin was lying
on
when he said I'm the only human who could do it?
Yeah,
on Tatooine,
I'm the only human that can do it. Me, a 10-year-old boy, I could do it. No, you shut your mouth, you bull cut motherfucker.
Listen, Kitster would never be friends with a liar. Okay.
Okay. Because
Kitster, like, what happens to Kitster?
They get in a fight in the deleted scenes.
No, but like later on, don't we know canonically, like, Kitster becomes become a gangster or
something like that? Yeah.
Hell yeah. So wizard.
Is it something with Greedo? Maybe, I don't know. Anyways.
But no. Yeah. So, he's seeing all these things. He's seeing the midi-chlorian count over 20,000. Holy crap! Not even Master Yoda's that high. I've never seen anything like that before. And it's just like it was a series of things that made Qui-Gon go, huh. So to me, the virgin birth is not like the end all be all
Hold on.
of him being the chosen.
No one said Shmi's a virgin. Just that
there was
Just
no
that.
father. That's all
There
she
was
said.
no father.
There
She
was
said,
no
"There's
father."
no father.
Listen,
Doesn't mean I don't get down from time to time.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
And
no
you know what
father.
else?
Lars.
You know what
Klieg
else?
Lars.
It's Pride Month. Stop going with your cishet version of virginity. All right, Brando.
All right, you got me there. Okay. But so also I know there's like a lot of debates, a lot of different interpretations. Like you have like the Plagueis novel, which isn't canon, but like there might be elements from it that are canon that they're just waiting to make official. Maybe even in this show. Who knows? And so we have there. I think I was listening to like Alex Damon talk about this, and saying like how there's like a misunderstanding that like Plagueis and Sidious like created Anakin using the Force, but what really happened was they were doing a lot of devious things using the dark side, and the Force itself was like, well, that's a problem. I need to counteract that. And the Force decided to create Anakin, which is like, I hope that becomes canon, because that is like the Force creating Anakin based on its own will versus, these coven of witches using the Force to create babies. Those are two very different things. One is very chosen one-y, and the other one is not very chosen one-y. And then also on top of that, if you are in the camp that you do believe that Plagueis and Sidious created Anakin, then wouldn't that make him a false prophet? He wouldn't be the chosen one. It'd be no different than the Bene Gesserit creating Paul Atreides in Dune. They're just like literally creating a false prophet to infiltrate the Jedi and destroy them from the inside, which means he's not the chosen one. So if he is the chosen one, there's no way he could have been created by Plagueis, and that's my big stance that I'm going to take here today. And I'm sure I have more to say, but I can't.
You're very
remember right
brave.
now.
You're very brave, Randy.
Prophecy can often be misinterpreted. Plagueis and Sidious could have been trying to force the prophecy, and which therefore brings about the prophecy, right? Like, there's a lot of ways it could be interpreted, and ultimately, I don't think Star Wars is about interpreting that. I think we know for sure, like, per Lucasfilm, per someone, I'm sure someone's confirmed, yeah, Anakin's the chosen one. Okay, but so is Luke, and so is Rey, and so is Leia.
Yeah, there can be more than one. Like, to say that there's this one guy who's going to bring balance for the eternity of time in this galaxy is really folly, and just, I think, like,
I've never seen this prophecy,
that wouldn't make, like, you mean to tell me, back in the, let's say 10,000 years ago, there wasn't a situation, and then, well, we got to wait for the chosen one in the next 20,000 years to fix this situation. Like, no, like, maybe throughout periods of time, there are different chosen one. There are different immaculate conceptions, just because, it doesn't take away, the specialness of Anakin. Go ahead.
Point of order. I don't want to call someone conceived by dark, tainted magic immaculate.
Sure.
Because immaculate would mean without taint, without,
Sure.
Yeah, so...
Not dirty. Yeah.
We're just trying to put
the
it
dirty
in Jesus
force.
terms.
You don't want to be
Anakin
conceived by the
is
dirty
Jesus.
force.
Yeah, that dirty force. That force is going to get you.
I did want to say also that to support Anakin being the chosen one, though, because I've always had like my doubts, especially Yoda in Revenge of the Sith going, oh, prophecy misread could have been. Like, maybe we didn't quite understand this whole chosen one thing the way we thought. But I think the biggest evidence to me is like the whole Mortis arc and like Anakin being able
pretty much
to do what he can do with like the son and the daughter, right?
Yeah,
They're called.
yeah.
I think that is probably the strongest bit of evidence that he's the only one who could have done that stuff if he was the chosen one. But.
The whole reason I stopped coming on the show is because you people won't stop bringing up the fucking Mortis arc.
We're called Mortis Inc.
Who cares?
Did you know?
Who cares
Mortis
about... No, I'm kidding.
It's canon, bro. George Lucas did it.
Fuck. Well, I actually had a point. I wanted to make the joke first. A certain point of view and Star Wars Rebels both have examples of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan speculating on who could be the chosen one, right? Maul's last word, is he the chosen one? Is he the one?
Right.
And Obi-Wan says, yeah, he is. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan debate whether they should train Leia or Luke. You know, like, so it doesn't. The fact of the matter is, the events of the prequels set up for the balancing of the Force. Which, hey, you know what? I got a question. Has the Force ever fucking seemed balanced in Star Wars to you?
Right.
No.
What do we even know what that fucking means? Because I don't.
I mean, it's very
100%.
It's very cyclical. Even in Rise of Skywalker, Anakin says to Rey, "Bring balance to the Force, like I did. Like, do it again."
Like I did. What do you mean?
That was supposed to be a one and done, Anakin. That was supposed to be one time.
You threw a man down a hole. Does that balance the Force?
Right.
I don't
no more
know.
evil will ever exist again. Yeah.
Because look, even after you've thrown a man down a hole, you still have other dark side practitioners that exist out in the galaxy. You still have other light side practitioners that exist out in the galaxy. Mm-hmm. What's in balance? The Jedi and the Sith? The Force is bigger than the Jedi and the Sith, and that's the point of this episode, right? So whether or not Plagueis is the only Sith that was practicing, creating life with the Force, that's not to say there aren't other magic users and Force users out in the galaxy that are doing similar or the same things. Which one is more effective, or which one is more...
Maybe this is who we learned it from.
That... Yeah, that's possible. I kind of hope it's not that, right? I kind of hope that this is just an old practice that was forgotten, and I doubt we'll ever get hard confirmation on who or what or anything about Plagueis in canon. I think we've got the Darth Plagueis novel, and I think we can glean what we can glean from that. But ultimately, actually, Brandon, let's build on that. That's a great point. Let's build on that. I wish Kevin were here. Where's Kevin?
He's working. He's a working boy.
Who are the original Sith? Do you guys know anything about the original Sith?
Not really.
There's this game. There's this game called the Knights of the Old Republic. And
is it called Coder?
Yeah, Coder.
They know her.
Coder. Hey, let's play some Coder.
Yeah, giddy up.
Let's hook up the Sega and play some Coder. So in Coder, and in the surrounding materials around Coder, the Sith were an alien race.
Mm.
And the Sith Order that we know that appropriates their name were their usurpers. The Sith are thieves. They are brigands. They have nothing that they can claim as their own, except for maybe the rule of two. Right? And there's some implication that the rule of two may have been there's some implication now that the rule of two may have been to emulate the dyad. Which to that extent, then hey, that's also you pilfering the concept of that and making it, the point of your order or whatever, right?
And are Mae and Osha a dyad?
No.
I don't know. No.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible. Maybe.
I mean, look, they're light and dark, sure, but I
don't know. I'm willing to bet they are.
I think Manny Jacinto is Snoke.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, right? It's the Sith do not have anything that they can claim as their own. The Death Star, Sidious's super weapon, created by the Geonosians, invented by the Geonosians. He goes, Pog the Lesser goes, right, and shows the plans.
I understood every word.
He doesn't.
They needed Galen Erso to make the laser beam, though.
Right, but it's not like Count Dooku goes, "Here, take this, Poggle, and build me a Death Star." Poggle goes, "Hey, I made this for you. I made this." right? The Sith are thieves. The Sith can claim nothing as their own. Right? They steal lightsaber crystals and corrupt them.
Yeah.
The Sith are thieves. So I don't fucking care that Anakin was immaculately conceived, and so is Osha and Mae. I think that's pretty interesting.
I mean, to be fair, we don't know exactly how Osha and Mae were exactly conceived. We can draw different types of conclusions.
Episode 6 could say they were made in a lab.
Yeah, I mean, like, they could be. We don't exactly know at this point. However, we do know that apparently, however it was done, the Jedi will not like it very much, according to Coral, when she's talking to Anastasia. So
the Jedi don't like science.
Yeah, well, so I think what happened is I think Grogu goes back in time and uses Operation Necromancer to create...
There we go.
Oh my gosh, there it is. There it is.
You know what I really...
Listen, it's a time-traveling little green alien, okay?
I think to put all this to rest, they just need to canonize the idea that, you know, thousands of years ago or whatever, there was just a Sith who created the prophecy as a practical joke and just like slipped it into the Jedi archives.
Right.
And it goes, this could be really funny when they start believing
Let's hire this Skyrider and just put the chosen
and
one.
And that's where
born.
they get the name Luke Skywalker.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, yeah. So let's put a pin in that for a little while. But I want to talk about.
I think let's no pin. Let's throw it out and not talk about it anymore.
Okay, yeah. Let's just we can move on now.
I do want to address the fact that the like how we talked about how the Jedi are space cops, and a lot of people are saying like, oh, they made the Jedi evil in this, are the bad guys in this. And we were talking about this before the show. We're like, George Lucas made the Jedi bad guys in Attack of the Clones. Okay, they're generals in a war.
Listen, if you're watching this is your first time. If you're a new viewer to Scoundrels Inc., I assume the channel's grown a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe? Okay, cool. if you're a new viewer to Scoundrels Inc. and you weren't around for when we did all of our episode watch-throughs and discussions, go watch the Attack of the Clones one. I'm sure Frank clipped it out, made it its own video, because it's a just fantastic discussion on why the most important 11 minutes of Star Wars take place in Star Wars Attack of the Clones.
Oh, okay. I only clipped 8 minutes out because you said 8 minutes.
Maybe it's 8. That's fine. You know what's funny? I was like, is it 8 or 11? I don't remember.
I thought it was 7 this whole time.
It was 8.
Anyways, about the vilification and the fall of the Jedi Order and why it takes place in Attack of the Clones and not in Revenge of the Sith. The Jedi are bad.
Not on purpose.
Not on purpose. It's the system. It's the system that they're meant to work under. The Republic is flawed. The Jedi are flawed. Brandon, you talked about lightsabers.
The chunky ones?
I promise this links back. You talked about lightsabers.
Okay.
So I am not caught up in I'm not caught up in the High Republic. Frank, you and I were talking about this last night. I've read the first 2.5 of the High Republic, but I've kind of kept abreast of what's going on. The High Republic, the course of the High Republic shows something very similar to what happens in Attack of the Clones and in the prequels. The militarization of the Jedi. The events of the High Republic sort of set up for the events in the prequels, in that at the beginning of the High Republic, we see these kyber crystal powered starfighters. We see these beautiful lightsabers. If you've never seen the Stellan Geos lightsaber, look it up. It's the fucking most gorgeous Crusader hilt lightsaber that I've ever fucking seen. Cruciform hilt lightsaber that I've ever seen. From what I understand, I had a conversation with a friend of the show. I said, hey, I saw this complaint online. It's kind of dumb. What are your thoughts on it? And he said, oh, well, he said, in the High Republic, I mean, it's Alex Damon. Let's put a little authority behind it. He knows what he's fucking talking about. He said, in the High Republic, you had these master saber forgers who did this awesome, beautiful work. But over the course of the issues with the Nihil and the other events that happen, they have to start mass producing lightsabers, and they have to start rushing through the training, and they have to start getting people trained and acclimated quicker to being knights and masters, because they need to respond to these threats. So it makes sense that at this point, in the late stage of the High Republic, that, yeah, they've got these ugly blocky lightsabers because they don't have time to make these beautiful works of art, right?
Interesting.
Even if you look in the prequels, I think this kind of holds true too. Compare all of the Jedi lightsabers to Palpatine's.
Yeah,
it's a nice bronzium lightsaber. And electrum beautiful piece of art compared to Ahsoka's that she makes while she's in exile, right? These curved samurai style, blades.
Hilts. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because the structure of the Jedi is that of a monastic order. There is an idea of austerity, and there is an idea of uniformity, and of you don't have time for these frills, right? They have the Jedi practice art, and they've got these gardens, and they've got these libraries, and all, there is culture there. And there, at least in the prequel era, we do see some variation of those lightsabers, and we see some beauty come back to some of those lightsabers. But compare it to the ones made outside of that, right? Compare it to Ahsoka's or Sidious's or the Stellan Geo's saber, right? They're crazy austere compared to that, right? Anakin builds the same lightsaber like 3 fucking times.
Right.
Obi-Wan's lightsaber is pretty fucking boring, right? It's, I like it. It's iconic, but it's iconic because we grew up with it. You compare those. If we had grown up with the Stellan Geo saber and the Ahsoka saber, and then also Obi-Wan and Anakin and Qui-Gon, you'd go, yeah, I want that one, right?
Sure.
Frank, we played Jedi Survivor, Fallen Order, whatever.
Yeah.
All the cool, awesome, beautiful blades are all relics of the High Republic. Yeah, the pieces you find to make those are relics of an older era. They're not like, oh yeah, here's a fucking socket wrench I found that I'm putting on my lightsaber.
Right. Yeah, it's true because you do have the option the option of using parts of the old Obi-Wan hilts, but I always ended up opting for more of the old or the High Republic pieces. It is funny that you put it that way. Yeah. All right, let's get back into the episode at hand, because I want to talk about the incident at large on Brendok that has seemingly one point of view at this stage of the show, and that is from Osha's point of view. We were led to believe that before this episode, Mae started a fire and it wiped out the coven, and she's responsible for the death of the coven. But it seems like, there might be more to explore here. I mean, yes, you can look at some of the footage in the trailers that we have yet to see that makes you raise an eyebrow. But more importantly, I think the events that happen as Osha is escaping the fortress there on Brendok. When you see a pile of coven witches just lying on the ground, and there's not really a big fire around. I mean, there's a fire there, but not that they died by, I think I said this in our Discord. It's not like they died of smoke inhalation in a well-ventilated area.
Soul is very adamant to not let her go near the bodies. Like, no. You'll see all the saber wounds move away.
Yeah, I mean, I think... So I really do have a theory on what happened, as opposed to the fire explanation, because even Soul says on the ship when he's talking to Osha, he's like, yeah, Mae started a fire and it destroyed everything, and he didn't really get to finish, I guess, quote unquote, lying to Osha, as Osha kind of interrupted him a little bit, saying, we got to go back and all this, which is a very heartwarming, or not heartwarming, but a very powerful, emotional scene. Especially from the two actresses that played these kids, I thought were really great. And there's some moments I want to touch on later that really affected me. But are we all in agreement that this is so sus what happened on Brendok?
Oh yeah,
yeah. I think we're only seeing one side of the story, and I don't think I think whatever it is, it's going to be a big misunderstanding, right? Mm-hmm. The Jedi are suspicious of the Coven, and the Coven are suspicious of the Jedi.
Sure.
It's gonna be it's the powder keg scenario of it doesn't matter who fires the first shot. It's probably Torben.
Coral. I think it's Coral.
Oh no, I think it's
Coral.
I think it's gonna be Torben.
I think it's. Well, let me just give you my little theory then.
Oh, sure.
So here's my theory on what may have happened. My idea is that, first we see Mother Coral when they're having kind of the discussion about what to do with the kids and the testing and all that. Mother Coral is like, they can miss 4 Jedi. Why can't we just take care of them? And Anastasia doesn't want anything to do with it. She doesn't want violence. But Mother Coral is like, let's just get rid of them. There's only 4 of them. Who's going to miss them? So with that in mind, I feel like... And then you couple that with the conversation that Mother Anastasia has with Osha when Osha's like, I want to be a Jedi. Which, by the way, when I watched it a second time, that line from Osha, I want to be a Jedi, Mama... I found that to be really emotional because here is this young kid who has the knowledge that if she wants to become a Jedi, she's never going to see her mother. And yet she still has, in a lesson from Soul, has the courage to say what her truth is, in that she wants to become a Jedi, fully knowing she's never going to see her mother again if that's the route she chooses. And I think it's a really, really powerful moment from Osha and from her Mother Anastasia. But she goes on to say, we'll talk about this, and basically it's kind of saying like, I know what you want, but that's probably not going to happen for you. And there's an element that I think that there's an underlying element to this, and when the Coven confronts the 4 Jedi, and I feel like Mother Coral basically mind controls Kelnaka, has Kelnaka turn on Torben because they're in the trailer. You can see Kelnaka's eyes are black. I feel like she uses him as a weapon, and then after that, all hell breaks loose, and then the Jedi are gonna Jedi, and then it's a bad outcome. I think it was probably initiated by Coral at the behest of not the behest at the what's the word I'm looking for? Mother Anastasia doesn't want that to happen, but it happens anyway, and Coral just has had enough. She wants to get rid of these Jedi. She's not these kids. They're not going to take her kids, basically, right? And so it's from a point of defense, but it goes a step too far, and it just ultimately the Jedi did what they did. I think they sabotaged that reactor thing. And maybe Coral or another witch finds that out, says they're here to do it. Maybe Indara is on a different type of mission, or has a mission within the mission that the other Jedi don't know about. And Torben, because Torben is her Padawan, he's also side by side with her, perhaps. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it ultimately, whether my theory comes out right or not. I really don't care. That's what I think at this point.
Well, I don't think your theory is far off from mine. I think I kind of see the same thing happening, but I think that whatever Coral does is in response to provocation from Torben.
Torben, yeah, sure, could be.
I keep thinking Toman Baratheon.
Toman. Yeah. Is it Toman? Yeah.
Torben, because ultimately he has to take the Bear's Vow. Right?
Right.
So there has to be something that he feels immeasurably guilty about. Also, Carrie-Anne Moss's character, whose name I can't remember.
Indara.
Indara has a single teardrop tattoo.
Yes, I saw this pointed out. Yeah, I saw that pointed out. I think.
But when we see her later, she's got 2.
She's got 2. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm totally stealing that from Molly. I wouldn't noticed that at all. Molly or Alex pointed that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's really interesting. But I think ultimately the Jedi are going to be the provocateurs here, because there's too much clear guilt, and I think Jedi would be able to clear their conscience if they acted in defense, right?
Sure.
Because what does Yoda say? A Jedi uses the Force for defense, never attack.
Never attack. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they need to have something that they feel guilty about. And I think it's that the fact that they provoked this.
Yeah. Brandon, you got some thoughts on this?
I think you guys covered it pretty well. There's definitely some messy business going on. I hope there's not lightsaber wounds.
Messy business like the Force penetrating? Yeah, you're right, Raymond.
Yeah. Like I was trying to make the joke earlier. I was like, they're going to have a bunch of like blaster bolts wounds on me. Like, only an Imperial Stormtrooper can be so precise.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Some funny business went down. I can't wait to see what happened. And yeah, this is a really interesting time period for the Jedi, because the High Republic era, especially in the books and the comics, is like touted as like the actual like golden era of the Jedi, of them. Like, this is their real height. And, like, the prequels is like right at the beginning of their major downfall, like right at the end.
Well, this is like 100 years after the High Republic in Light of the Jedi. So Light of the Jedi kind of being the height of the High Republic, this is a century beyond that. The fall has already begun, or at least the seeds of the fall have been planted.
Yeah, this almost seems like a dip, right? Like, you had like the height of the Jedi and the High Republic era, and then that 100 years until the Acolyte, and they kind of do this. Then they come back up in like the prequels, and then they plummet completely
I don't know if
down.
they come up in the prequels.
Like, I think
it's a slower decline.
Maybe
at
in
this
a
point.
sense, but also like taking into
maybe.
consideration what Sean was saying about like they kind of have a little more flavor with the lightsabers
there's
in
a
the
bit
prequels.
more.
They try to get back to that.
That's
and
true.
like, and I just think there's something about the Jedi of this era in this show where it's like they don't seem like they're making like proper decisions with the best interests of the citizens of the Republic in mind. They're like, there really is like that like moral ambiguity of like what it like means to be like a police officer in like modern day like America, where it's like you're trying to like do the right thing, but there's like a lot of bad stuff going on around you, and like, and there's a lot of a lot to delve into there, where it was like, you have like people like Soul, who I think is probably gonna turn out to be just as awesome as I think he is, right? But then you have people like Indara, who like I question her motives. Like you said, like maybe she's got a mission inside of the mission, and there's like different factions of the Jedi sneaking around each other, trying to like have different ideas of how the peace should be kept in the galaxy. I don't know. There's some weird stuff going on. I don't trust all these Jedi.
There's some support. There's some support for that with Vernestra Rowe and her kind of being like, oh, we can't interact this way because it'll, like, our political enemies will get an edge because of that. Like, there's definitely like to support kind of what you're saying of like the different factions, the different ideals. It does definitely seem like the Jedi are starting to be involved in the politics and the push and pull of the Republic, so to speak.
I want to talk about some of the moments where I already touched on a couple moments that really I felt like really emotional when Osha's talking to Anastasia, that whole conversation. Were there any moments in this episode that were really impactful in terms of whether it was something that happened with the story overall, or just moments between characters? Because I felt like there was a decent amount going on between the characters that I thought were quite powerful. I have another one in mind, but I don't know if you guys had anything else in mind that stuck out to you that you go, wow, that's interesting, or
there was a moment. So I have a hard time. I don't know which twin's which.
Oh yeah, I've actually kind of figured it out, but yeah.
Okay, so Mae
Yeah.
is the assassin one.
Correct.
And Osha is the good
She left the Jedi Order,
one.
yes.
So Osha goes in to into the ship to talk to the Jedi.
Right.
And Mae stays out and goes and interacts with Kelnaka.
Does she interact with Kelnaka?
I thought so, but that's
No,
my
'cause
problem. I
Osha's the-
couldn't tell which.
Yeah, no,
I
it
think
was
that was
Osha.
That's
It
my
was
issue.
Osha. Yeah, it was
I think that
Osha.
was a
She
weird-
took interest in what
I
There
think
was a
that was a
weird
weird
cut
cut.
because I thought when Osha then comes out of the ship, Mae is walking back from Kelnaka when she comes out of the ship.
I don't know
Yeah.
that.
It confused me. Sorry.
But it could be a weird cut, right? Like, and that's my thing.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna get. I've heard some people theorize that we're gonna probably see. This was all from Osha's point of view. We're gonna see this again from Mae's point of view.
Yeah.
Sure. I think we got to at some
So
point.
I think we're gonna see whatever that interaction was. If I'm correct and I'm not misreading the scene, because I might be misreading the scene, I think we'll see that whatever that was, and I think that was something important.
I don't know. I would have to go back and look, but I would doubt that, if only because Mae wants nothing to do with the Jedi. She wants them gone. She wants to stay there. She could care less whatever.
Yeah, but they ain't never
doing.
seen none of those Wookiees.
That's a fair point.
Like just the morbid curiosity of like, what is this literal giant walking carpet, right? Imagine you've never seen a Wookiee.
Right.
And the first one you see is this big like Kelnaka's a little more matted than Chewie, right? Like his hair's a little more like he's a little more gruff than Chewie.
Yeah.
So like he looks like a fucking walking carpet. Like no, no joke.
I think in both cases it was Osha, and like you said, we're gonna get Mae's point of view later on. Because I was confused at first. I was like, wait, what's Osha doing being interviewed? I thought she was just outside with Kelnaka, but then I'm like, oh. Maybe they're just showing her point of view, and we don't get to see Mae's like.
Just a weird, lots of weird cuts.
We never saw Mae's test. We just know that she walked out and was like.
Maybe Mae was like lying, and she like failed the test on purpose, and the Jedi were like, "We don't really want her anyway. She's kind of mean. Like, let's just like let this slide and move on."
Interesting point though. When Osha does go into the ship, you first see her with Torben and tests her blood. I wonder if we'll ever know their midichlorian counts. If they'll
50 million.
Care.
Way more than Anakin.
Do we care about Do we care about the M count?
Well, I think the Jedi do.
Right, but do we as an audience care?
You know what? It's I mean, look, I'm not going to care what the number is.
Frank, are you just trying to get more stupid fucking schmonown questions?
No.
Either way, like I don't think they're going to reveal it, because either way they're in trouble, because it has to be a high enough number to make the Jedi go, whoa, these twins are important. But it has to be a low enough number where it doesn't make
the incels don't go,
Exactly. That's what I was going to get at. But also, like, they let Osha walk away from the order, or they were going to kick her out, whichever way you want to look at it, from Indara's point of view or from Osha's point of view. Either way, they let her leave the order. So it couldn't be that high where they're like, wait a minute. We're not going to just let some 20,000 midichlorian girl walk off. No, you're gonna do some. You're gonna do our,
But what did the Jedi do in that instance? Are they gonna throw you in forced jail just for not wanting to be a Jedi, or are they just gonna go like, please stay here and just sweep the floors, please? Like,
right.
You could be like Broom Kid. You don't even have to touch
bet you
it.
Broom Kid's got like a 2 trillion. And I don't know what are we.
What do you guys think about the moment when Osha finally, well, not finally, but is on board the ship after the whole incident, and she's talking to Sol, and he says, Mae started a fire, destroyed everything, and if you wish, you will train as my Padawan. You're going to be okay. You will never feel like this again. I feel like there's also another initial moment with Sol and Osha where he brings out his lightsaber, and he's like, would you like to be tested as a Jedi to see if you can become one? And he also says something to the effect of, where we're going, there are thousands of kids just like you. I don't know about you, but I got kind of like a really like, sure, I think he's coming with the best of intentions, but I really feel like he's, I don't know if manipulation is the right word.
He's persuading.
But
he's certainly persuading.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, it just didn't feel entirely great.
But that's absolutely right. The Jedi are not manipulative, but like they're maybe a little
aggressive negotiations, right?
Yeah, aggressive negotiation.
Yeah, I mean they take kids
negotiation with a lightsaber. Right? But I think Osha is lonely. I think Osha wants to be around more children. And I do think that's a defining factor in her going. Spend a life with these 20 witches, one of which looks just like me, or go and see the world. Go and see the world. Right?
A la universe, yeah. I also thought like they did a great job really depicting each kid, Mae and Osha, and like their differences, and really giving us that dark and light side of being twins and all that. So I thought they did a great job with that. I guess I don't really have too much more to like dive into unless you guys have other things that are on your mind about the episode.
Yeah, I just want to, just in case I'm not on a future one of these, Frank loses I'm here all the time, but Frank sometimes loses my footage.
Sometimes I do lose the footage.
Manny Jacinto, Jason.
Sure. Yeah, I do want to get into this a little bit. Let's get into some Sith theory real quick.
So
let's do that.
Has anyone seen The Good Place?
Yes. He's great.
Yeah, and what does he do in The Good Place? He pretends to be someone
dumb.
He isn't. No, he pretends to be a mute.
Oh, yeah, that's right. At first, in the beginning of the...
He pretends to be this wise, mysterious... It's like first 2 episodes. Spoilers for The Good Place if you watch The Good Place. Or if you're planning on watching it. Actually, if you haven't watched it, you absolutely should. It's really good.
It's really good.
You have Manny Jacinto, who plays Chimere?
Yeah, he's Chimere, yeah.
Chimere, you've got Sabine Wren.
Natasha...
Nope.
No,
Lee Bordizzo? What are you talking about?
The original Sabine Wren is...
Oh, yes! Oh, my gosh, why can't I think of her name? No!
She's Tia Sakar.
Tia Sakar, yes.
She's great in it.
She's good, yeah.
Show's great. Watch it. Anyways, Manny Jacinto is... plays someone he isn't. I think the same thing's going on here. I think it's... I think he's a Sith Lord. I think he's playing...
Sith Lord?
Or maybe not the Sith. Maybe not the Sith Lord.
Yes, Mace.
Maybe not the Sith Lord, but the guy in the mask, Mae's master.
If he's the guy in the mask, Sean, you have earned my trust.
Okay. Well, hey, I was right about what's her fucking name? The clone in Bad Batch.
Oh my gosh, I can't think of her name either.
Oh.
I see. Why?
Emery?
Emery, there you go.
I was right about Emery. I was right about... I said in like the second episode of Bad Batch, I said, well, so when we first saw Emery, I said, oh, she's a clone. In the second episode of Bad Batch, I said, I bet they're going to want Omega for force sensitivity reasons. I'm never wrong. Anyways,
basically.
Guys, it's been great being here.
And you know what? Even in 1975, he was like, in a couple years, George Lucas is going to come out with this thing called Star Wars. I'm never wrong, guys.
That was you, Sean? Wow, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. Wow, incredible.
And he was right.
Do you have any theories, Brandon, on who Chimere is exactly, or who the Sith could be? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that's a good theory. He could be the guy in the mask. I do think. I don't think he's gonna be like there's talking about Rule of Two here. I think he's the apprentice, not the master. You know.
Well, I don't think so. I think we're only gonna get that one Sith character. I don't think I think there's some ambiguity on who's the acolyte, who's the whatever. Sure. I'm not really concerned about that. I just mean the guy in the mask. I think it's going to be Manny Jacinto.
Okay.
But yeah, I think...
Or rather, Manny Jacinto will be a Sith. How about that? That's my theory.
Sure.
That's a good theory. It's a good theory. Otherwise, like, what is his role? He knows so much. He's like, oh yeah, the master will be pleased. I'm like, how involved in this are you?
Well, I think we're supposed to be meant to think he's another acolyte.
I'm like, so the Sith are just involved with petty criminals now?
I mean,
yeah.
So I'm going to give you my theory on how this all ties the Sith and Mae / the Coven. I think... So one thing we I forgot to mention was Mother Coral. We did not see her line with the other witches, nor did we see her with Anastasia. So we don't ultimately at this point in the story, we don't know what exactly has happened to her. Is she still alive? Is she dead? We don't know. I kind of think she survives and that she eventually meets up with Mae. And I think for a while it's Coral and Mae, together, and we know Coral does not like the Jedi. And after these events, Mae certainly does not like the Jedi either. So I think there's going to be some training there going on Mother Coral's part. I'm not saying she's a Sith. What I will say is I think, you were talking about this earlier, Sean, the Sith really don't have anything original. They don't own anything, really. And I think what is happening, what could have happened here is that a Sith master or an apprentice sees two people who have been wronged by Jedi, who hate the Jedi, and wants to use them as a tool to fight like their proxy war against the Jedi, much in the same way Palpatine was doing behind the scenes stuff. He wasn't the face of it. He had other things going on, right? The Trade Federation, all that Dooku, whatever. Go over there, do my Darth Maul, go over there and do this, go over and do that. I feel like, I don't know if it's like a Tenebrous situation or a Plagueis thing. I don't know. But I feel like a Sith apprentice, Sith Lord, a Sith was like, I'm going to use them to do, hey, I'm going to send you on this path to go, do you want revenge? Oh, the Jedi, I love that aspect. I love that for you. Do this. Here's my boy, Kymir. He's going to hook you up. He's a follower of the Sith. He loves the Sith religion, all that. He's a fanboy. He's a Sith fanboy. I think ultimately Kymir's a Sith fanboy and is in touch with that side of things. And so I just feel like perhaps, the Sith train Mae after something happens with Coral. She maybe dies, and Mae's like goes even darker, because of that, to the dark side because of that. I feel like the Sith are just using Mae for their own purposes and could care less if Mae lives or dies by sending her off to fight 4 Jedi Masters.
Frankie, I want to build off that.
Okay.
I want to say this isn't my theory. Not that this is someone else's theory, but this is just a hypothetical. Let's call it a hypothetical. I think that the coven is already involved in Sith politics. Okay. The coven are a tool.
Yeah.
Of Darth. Plagueis Master is Tenebrous?
Tenebrous, yeah.
The coven are a tool of Darth Tenebrous or Darth Plagueis.
Okay.
And they are using Mae and Osha to test their ability to create life. That's why we're seeing this. This is their trial run. This is the trial run for their plan. And I think that Coral is already, if this is true, the reason Coral is the more aggressive and the more keep the Jedi out is because she's already a Sith apprentice.
Maybe. Yeah, I've thought about that too. That could definitely be something.
So it's not that she becomes one; it's that she's already one when we see her.
She's already one.
Again, it's not my. This isn't my theory. I think it's actually not that far fetched, right? If the whole point of this, this is for all intents and purposes, this is a prequel to the events of Phantom Menace and the Clone Wars, right?
Right.
So, anyways, that's my wild now.
I was also thinking, what if one of the Jedi who were actively a part of the Jedi Order were actually the Sith apprentice, and they've completely infiltrated the Jedi Order and are just walking around as a Jedi, but they're secretly a Sith.
I don't think that works.
No,
I don't, and I'll tell you why. Because it's such a key point in the prequels that the Jedi are now blind. Right, the Jedi are now blind to the dark side. So I think that we have to. I think that does cheapen that revelation later on. For me, at least.
Sure.
What I heard is you're calling me a shill.
Listen, I am
Show me your check
you
stubs,
are one of the
Brandon.
Disney shills. Show us the receipts, okay? How much is Kathleen Kennedy paying you?
Not enough.
Not enough.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, I think there's a lot of different possibilities in terms of, I don't think Coral would be a Sith Master. no way. But totally, I could see her being
an
an
apprentice,
apprentice. Yeah, I could totally
Make
see
her
that being a
Plagueis.
thing.
Who cares? In canon, we don't know his species in canon, right? It could be
Damn,
anything.
bro.
Yo!
That would you want to light
You want to piss people off? That's how you do it.
Oh my god! At this point, I mean,
That's how you
my
do it.
goodness. We had one question from our Discord. It was from E87 Daniel. I think we kind of touched on this a little bit a while ago, but he asked, the witches said they are being persecuted, but didn't exactly say why. The Republic is in peacetime, especially after the Nile peace is restored. So why are the Jedi and Republic against the witches? What do you think they did? Will we actually get answers in this show? So I think we kind of touched on that a little bit. But yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, this came up in so full disclosure, I've been helping out moderate a larger Star Wars channel's chat because of all the trolls and the fucking
Star Wars theory. Holy
yeah,
crap.
I've been moderating keeping the sexists and the homophobes out of the Star Wars theory chat. And this came up there where what happened in Star Wars that we need to be spoon-fed shit, right? For 1,000 generations, the Jedi were the guardians of peace, right? Your father served with me in the Clone Wars. Those lines are meant to make us think and theorize and speculate. I don't need to know why they're persecuted or why they're whatever. Let me speculate and theorize and come up with my own thoughts and all that, right? Like, I don't need it spelled out.
Which we've done here today, you know.
Well, sure, but leave a little mystery in Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the fun part, right? Like, that's what captivated me as a kid. Wasn't, oh, I get to know all this shit. It's like I get to imagine this fucking giant world created over 3 films and then later 6 films.
Yeah.
And then later 6 films and books, and then later 9, 12 films, 12?
13. Was it 12? Like 9, 10, 11, 12.
Depends if you count the Ewok films or not.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyways, here, but to answer the question of will we get answers in the show, I think to your point, Sean, I don't think we'll get an exact answer on why they were persecuted, because I don't think it's pertinent to this story that the show is telling. So I don't think we'll get that particular answer. I think we theorize why already in the show, why they might have been persecuted, because I mean they kind of already say it in the show, because what they do, it's viewed unnatural and dark. That's kind of, there you go. I mean, I don't think they're gonna really expound on that any more than what was said in this episode. They could. I don't think so. I want
to make sure that Daniel knows I'm not attacking him on that one. I just it's Star Wars fans as a whole, right? Like this whole idea, like, well, it invalidates Anakin's story. No, it does. Like, it's more nuanced than that. Like, shut up. Like, let there be nuance and let there be mystery and let there be like it's this whole fucking thing where like we have to be upset because what we know is true is all suddenly different. Well, yeah, that's the nature of when you have a fucking growing, right? When 2 things. Timothy Zahn currently writes for Disney. Second, he got the Clone Wars wrong. And the Clone Wars we got, it's way more interesting than the Clone Wars Zahn imagined.
Oh, yeah.
I don't fucking care about ratty-ass Jorah Sabayoth and his fucking weird megalomania. Fuck, man. Like, stuff changes and it evolves, right? Luke is not that interesting.
What about Bigger Luke?
Bigger Luke.
Bigger Luke, hey, brother.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on Bigger Luke.
Oh no. Yeah, don't let's not do that. Brandon, you have any final thoughts on this 3rd episode of The Acolyte?
Yeah, well, I want to add about the persecution thing. I think the fact that they're witches is like enough, right?
Sure.
Like it's just like human history, right?
Yeah, you
No
use
one's
the
ever
term
liked
witch.
witches.
You use the term witch. It's because of the implication.
Yeah.
And I've come to realize I think the reason I've been so harsh about the Jedi in this show and in this time period, because I've kind of given them a hard time, and I think it's because like in this question, Daniel, right, I believe you said he brought up it's a time of peace, and every time we see eras of peace in the Star Wars universe, the government in charge becomes completely complacent and just like horribly mismanaged. I crap on the New Republic.
You talking about the New Republic now?
I crap on the New Republic constantly. They are
Yes,
the
you
worst
do.
system of government. The fact that they were able to let the First Order and like even Thrawn rise up from under their noses is absolutely mind-boggling. And just all the stupid stuff we see from them and like the Mandalorian. And I'm not saying the show is bad, but like the government, it's like, wow, no wonder the First Order rose. And we're seeing it here with the Jedi. It's like it's a time of peace, and it's just like there's kind of just like, what are they doing, man? They're just making like dumb, thoughtless decisions because, like Sean said, like they've become politicians now, even more so than in the Phantom Menace. I think they're politicians already in this era of Star Wars and the Acolyte, and it's like they're making decisions based on how the public perceives them and not the greater good, I think. And it's interesting. It's quite obvious to me, I think. And that's why I think I give them a hard time, because I'm like getting like flashbacks from the New Republic. Like, what are you doing, guys? Come on.
Well, so I'm pretty sure it's funny you mentioned the New Republic, because we have the Marshals, right? The idea of the Marshals in the New Republic. I think that if I remember from Light of the Jedi, there were Jedi that were Marshals. So it's kind of the same like very similar, right? Like managing the far reaches of the galaxy, you know, they're cops, right?
It's like, oh, the Imperial Remnant is rising in the Outer Rim. Just send Carson Teva in an X-Wing to check it out. It's like, yeah, good idea, guys. Well, let's send the army.
Like, they don't have one. They're demilitarizing. That's the problem.
Yeah, Mon Mothma, she was so cool in Andor. What happened to her?
Before we close out here, earlier today I was watching Revenge of the Sith, and I was watching the part where Mace Windu says the dark side surrounds the Chancellor, right? And then like I don't know, not too long after that, Anakin goes, Palpatine's a Sith Lord, and Mace is like, Sith Lord? Like, bro, you just said you don't think that there's a possibility that Anakin's correct right now. Like, if this is true, you will have gained my trust, Anakin. Like, what did you just say 15 minutes ago? All right. Anyways, I thought it was always funny. I guess, is it going to wrap it up? You guys, we're all done here? We're all done
I think so. Look, everyone, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook.
No, but try. Look at us.
Parlor?
Red?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I don't know anyone who's a barber. Do all that good stuff. Subscribe to the channel if it's your first time here. If you want to hear more of this, that we do.
Subscribe to Brandon on Sci for all your science needs.
There you go.
Yes.
We got Rookies and Rule Books.
Thank you.
With Sean over here. Go check that out.
Go
check it out.
Wolhuff.
How's that story going? How's the campaign going, Sean?
God, I hate editing.
Okay. But the campaign, though, not the work.
You know what? It's been a pretty big learning experience. Doing things on camera versus off camera is very, very different. And players that I knew well as people. One of them is my fiance. One of them is going to be a groomsman at my wedding. The other two are people I love dearly. But I didn't know how they would interact with each other and with me at a table. So it's been a learning experience.
Well, you certainly got the rookies part, I guess, down.
Well, it certainly makes me feel like a rookie at a certain point too. So
interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us.
Wookiees.
You have to let them all win. Figure that out.
Let the Wookiees win.
Yeah. Let the Wookiees win. All right. That's going to do it for us here on Scoundrels Inc. this week. We'll be back next week with episode 4 of The Acolyte, titled, I don't know, put in the comment what do you think the next week's title is going to be. Until then, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Scoundrel. Scoundrel. I like the sound of that.